Chapter 122. I am both confused and frustrated by the sheer number of people that decided to follow me out of the prison. I feel like I was pretty unambiguous with both the fact that I intended to be a complete dictator to anyone that stuck around, and that everyone is welcome to just leave. At the very least I was expecting the former prison staff to take me up on that, as well as most of the prisoners. Turns out this is not the case. The entire cooking and cleaning staff is following me. I guess now that I think about it, it does make sense for most people to want to stick together when we are this far away from the city. The forest is dangerous, and all that. At least for other people. I take a deep breath of fresh air, because not even feeling the movement of my disgusting wet flesh sack can put a damper on the smell of freedom. Thanks for coming to break me out, you two, I tell Matteo and Netta. The three of us are currently patrolling the forest, mainly because the huge group on the road has been getting a little stuffy for me. It's uncomfortable to suddenly go from living in a cell alone for 2 years to being constantly feeling the rapt attention of dozens of people. I don't like it. Of course, Vida, Netta says, nodding what remains of her head at me. It's mostly skull now, with skin only from the chin down. They're single quotes no way we'd let you rot there, Matteo hisses playfully, coiling quickly around me once before darting away. We owe you our lives, after all, Netta agrees. And we love you, Matteo adds. We are so happy to have you back. Matteo's body, being mostly chitin, seems to be faring a lot better after 2 years of undeath. He has a lot more unhealed battle damage, though, holes and cracks, a missing mouth finger or two. I'm kind of surprised Penelope still hasn't worked out a solution to that whole mind control thing, I admit. Netta and Matteo share a worried glance that I don't quite understand, but I decide not to press the matter. It's just nice having revenants around again. And dregs, for that matter. I have a fun little collection of zombies around me, and it feels great. Unfortunately I've just about scared off everything else in this part of the forest, so it's time for us to return to herding cats on the road. Speaking of Penelope, Netta says, I suspect it'll be difficult to sneak you into the city, but we have a secret spot in the forest that we meet up at pretty regularly. I suspect that's where she'll check for you. I guess that works, yeah, I allow, shrugging. I was hoping to just sneak back into Skyhope, but there's no way I can do that with dozens of people following me. It might also be difficult because you have 3 eyes and a tentacle, Matteo points out. 4 eyes and counting, actually, I grunt. There's one on my thigh, and I think I feel another growing just above my hip. A thigh eye doesn't sound very useful, Netta comments. It's really not. So are you like, always. It is an eyelid, thankfully, I reassure her. Oh. Good. The 3 of us make it back to the road, where Aldrich, Lynn, and Jeremiah are keeping the peace among our captured Templars. Though it's mostly Aldrich. Apparently her talent just lets her look at people and make them balloon into a horrible flesh blob, which is just incredibly disgusting. I saw her use it on a bird, and I can't imagine how freaky it would be on a person. Apparently she can use the exact same talent to heal people, but I don't know if I'm super keen on letting her try. Welcome back, work of art, whichever Aldrich is currently in charge says to me. Can you just call me Vida? I ask her. It would be my pleasure, Vida, she agrees. Welcome back, kiddo. Lynn says, scooping me up in a brief hug. Can you also just call me Vida? Come on, kiddo, I have 2 whole years of taunting to catch up on. Well, in that case I hope you've been taking care of Vitamin, Grandma, I counter. Oof. Such a cruel daughter I have. Woe is me. Lynn whines. But yeah, actually, she's been doing really well. She's with our, benefactor. I nod, having assumed as much. Penelope no doubt figured out whatever animancy nonsense is necessary to feed my revenants, because she's smart and cool. And since Lynn is being careful not to say her name where anyone can hear, I assume she's currently in good standing over at Skyhope and hoping to stay that way, which is interesting. Also interesting are Jeremiah and Jalisaveta, who are talking with each other. By the way they awkwardly and suddenly stop their conversation as I approach, I assume it was about me. Plotting with other animancers already, eh Jelly? I ask, smirking at her. We'll make a heretic out of you yet. That's not, Jelisa starts, but then cuts herself off and sighs. Hello, Vita. I'd prefer if you didn't make a game out of taunting me on top of everything else. It's hardly heresy to have a polite conversation with someone who disagrees with what we believe. You should know that. Your coworkers certainly fooled me, I respond dryly. You should know that. How are the sleds, Jeremiah? Functional enough, he answers, nodding politely. I find myself rather humbled, to be honest. You craft undead as quickly and easily as you breathe, and the articulation of motion is almost lifelike. I don't know why I bothered making my own. A menagerie of undead creatures carry our supplies down the road, which is of course exactly as conspicuous as it sounds. These roads are not very well traveled, however, and my sensory range drastically outstrips how far anyone here can see. We've only encountered one other group of travelers, and it wasn't difficult to get everyone off the road and hidden before they got close. Well, you had to learn all this the hard way, I reassure him. I'm just kind of like this. It's not a bad sort of humbling, Jeremiah dismisses. It was silly of me to consider myself skilled. I clearly have a long way to go. And speaking of a long way to go, is it true that our goal is Skyhope? Jelisa asks. No, it isn't, I inform her with the confidence of a person who didn't just decide that a couple minutes ago. Just somewhere nearby. HRM, Jelisa hums. Have you decided what you're going to do with the people you captured? No, I admit. You and Lynn were right, though. Torturing them back. It's not productive. I'm torn between just letting them go when we get somewhere safe, or killing them and getting it over with. I'm obviously going to encourage you to release them, Jelisa says. Obviously, I snort. But why should I? It's the right thing to do, Jelisa answers simply. According to who? I ask. It's nice, sure. And I respect that. I respect you because you show kindness and decency when no one else does. But are the other Templars ever going to respect me? Are they going to forgive me and leave me alone if I show them mercy? Or will every one of them I release just turn around and immediately try to stab me? Jelisa chews her lip. If you only show kindness when it benefits you, is it really kindness at all? She asks. If I show kindness even when it will bite me in the ass, how long will it be until it kills me? I counter. Is it really hypocritical to only show kindness to people that won't abuse it? Shit, Vita, you're a lot more a lot more wordy than I remember, Lynn mentions. Well, the thing about being imprisoned by Templars is that you end up listening to a lot of lectures on morality, I grunt. And they're all pretty much the same. I have practice. I think the essence of goodness is being willing to let yourself be hurt for the sake of what's right, Jelisa continues, ignoring the aside. Because to me, doing the right thing is more important than personal gain. Well, that's well and good for you, I grumble. But I don't think you understand how much easier that is for you. My whole life I have been living meal to meal, if you can even call it living. I've been a homeless orphan for longer than I can remember, Jelisa. I can't give away bread to people less fortunate than me when people less fortunate than me don't fucking exist. But you're not like that anymore, Vita, Jelisa insists. You're the most powerful person here. Sure I am, until the High Templars come after me again for no reason other than having been born weird, I snap. You don't get it because you've never suffered the consequences of being hated. When you do the right thing, you get applauded. But when I went out to do the right thing I got fucking arrested. You see the difference here? You're not better than me because you're nice, Jelisa. You're nice because your life is better than mine. You can afford it because you get rewarded for it. But I don't, I never have, and at this point it's really fucking difficult to think of reasons why I should bother to keep trying. It's not about the reward, Jelisa says quietly. Oh yeah. I challenge. Well, How about you spend 18 years repeatedly getting your ass kicked for every nice thing you do and see if that changes your mind? As far as I'm concerned, your entire organization should be scoured from the island. I'm tempted to do it myself, but I'd prefer it if you just finally fucking left me alone. I glower at her a bit as she looks away awkwardly, worry and doubt in her soul. You don't think that's very likely, do you? I realize. You think they're just going to keep coming for me. Most likely, she admits. I'd figured as much, but it still sucks to hear. If you let us go, I can try to convince them to leave you alone, Jaleesa says. I mean, you'd have to make a few promises, probably, but I'm done fucking around, I tell her bluntly. If your people come at me again, it's war. And speaking of coming at me, it's then that I sense a very powerful and very familiar soul enter the tip of my range, High Templar Cassia the Maelstrom. It's hard to forget this bitch because she was the one who captured me and took me to jail in the first place. She knocked me unconscious by putting a fucking vacuum around my head, and that's an experience that puts her near the top of the people I never want to meet again list. Now that I have the time to appreciate it, though, I do have to admit she has a beautiful soul. Like all High Templars, her soul is fucking huge, extending well beyond the bounds of her physical flesh. She's a violent, spherical swirl of soothing experiences, something powerful and dangerous, yet crafted from beauty and grace. She is the smell of a thunderstorm, the awe of a gorgeous vista, the feeling of a cloud passing between your fingers. All roaring together in a furious vortex of death. And that's not the only soul I feel with her. A High Templar I don't recognize is carried along with her by her power, and though I've never felt it before I suspect I can put a name to the soul. It feels like a massive glass sphere, the center of which glows with that warm radiance I love so much in Lynn and Jaleesa's souls, but between that glow and the edge of the glass flash countless reflections, each warped by the sphere. Images of landscapes flying by, bulbous and warped, feel less like a natural part of the soul and more like information it is constantly pulling inside, actual reflections of views that the talent is constantly streaming into the mind of its wielder. This, I suspect, is the soul of Brahm the Ubiquitous. If I were to take a guess at the true nature of his talent, then, I think he's similar to me in that he gets constant information about everything around him in a wide area. Unlike me, that information is audiovisual rather than some kind of special sense. He just sees and hears everything in a huge range around him. And then he can cast his illusions anywhere he can see. Notably, though, his range is no longer bigger than mine. I feel no indication that he has spotted us, and that means we aren't fucked yet. Damn, my sensory range is probably measurable in miles now. Everyone into the forest. I order. Now. This way. Immediately I'm assaulted with feelings of panic and confusion, but I refuse to elaborate and just keep yelling at people until they obey. This is my favorite part of being in charge. We cut a path perpendicular from the road, heading deeper and deeper into the forest as fast as possible as I try to rack my brain about how to survive fighting Cassia and Brahm again. I'm a lot stronger than I was, sure. But there's still very little I can do about someone forming a vacuum around my face. Maybe I can stop Cassia from using that spell with how much more mana I can draw out from myself at once, but maybe I can't, so that's not really a plan. Ideally we'll move fast enough to avoid Brahm's attention, but I don't actually have any idea what his range is compared to mine beyond the fact that it's more than 1,000 yards. He could spot us in seconds or he could spot us in an hour, I really have no clue. But even if we end up well outside his range, the fact that several dozen people just trudged off the road with sleds and entered the forest is going to be difficult to miss. Will they ignore us and just continue towards Site 4, or will they turn to investigate? Plans start forming in my mind, but as usual all of the best ones are far from kind. If we leave the staff behind and bring the supplies, the High Templars will have to choose between leaving them to die in the forest and continuing to chase us. That will definitely slow them down at the very least. Likewise, I can use the Templar prisoners as hostages to get the High Templars to back down. I could also maybe lie to them and claim that ours hasn't already escaped, as he might be scary enough to be a bigger priority than I am. I don't really like these plans, though. Fucking over the serving staff would be a dick move to people that abjectly don't deserve it. They followed me because they believed I could and would protect them, and I don't want to betray that unless I absolutely have to. And a plan that probably won't even work is far from an absolutely have to. I have significantly fewer compunctions about using Templars as hostages, because fuck Templars, but my main issue with that plan is that I don't think it will work. There's a good chance they will be willing to sacrifice those Templars in order to recapture me, considering that's literally protocol according to Zombie Manus. It's also guaranteed to piss the Templars off, which is detrimental to my long-term goal of getting left the fuck alone. As for ours, I'm not terrible at lying, but even if the lie works, I don't know if that guy is such a big deal that they literally won't even take 5 minutes to smack me around first. Which leaves me the problem of dealing with a fight again. I'm not super worried about Brahm. He's dangerous, sure, but I can just pop his illusions. It's Cassia that I have no idea what to do about. 2 years ago she opened the fight by hitting me with a wind projectile from over 1,000 yards away, and I seriously doubt her skills have faded since then. There's basically nothing I can do to someone that fights from that distance. I could maybe fill a soul with mana and throw it at her, but it took me 5 Templar-sized souls bursting with my essence to create a null magic zone covering a 60-foot drop. I can't even get close to making her fall over 1,000 yards. My only hope is for her to underestimate me and willingly put herself in range, and that's not even kind of a strategy. Hey, this is quite a pace we're setting, Vita, Lynn says with a bit of false cheerfulness. I'm not sure how long the non-combatants can keep this up. I acknowledge. What you thinking about, kiddo? You wouldn't happen to have any ideas on how to kill Cassia the Maelstrom, would you? I could target her with my talent fairly easily, but I doubt I will be able to affect her, Altrix reports, and then I remember I have a bunch of other people here that also hate Templars. Alright, you have any ideas, Jeremiah? I ask. Undead avians would be a minor distraction at best, Jeremiah says. Anything physical she's going to be able to bat aside, so long-range anima attacks would probably be ideal. I know a few, but I doubt they will be able to do much to a High Templar. Huh. Well, prepare them anyway, I order. And let's see if you can teach them to me if we have time. Jeremiah pauses, giving me a considering look before nodding slightly. It would be my pleasure, he lies. I frown at him. What was that about? Let's see, he doesn't want to share what he knows and he doesn't particularly like me personally. However, he probably believes that if he denies my requests I will just kill him and then make him teach me anyway. It's not urgent, you don't have to if you don't feel like it, I tell him. Just don't lie to me again. He raises an eyebrow, and nods. What about you, to kill from above? Do you even know who Cassia the Maelstrom is? The bugman from Hiveric has been following me around for reasons I suspect only he knows. He's not a very talkative guy, but I figure maybe somehow he knows a thing or two about people who kill from above. I am aware of the human known as Cassia the Maelstrom. I have been developing a combat plan for fighting this threat during the entirety of my stay in prison. Oh hey, that sounds promising. Okay, lay it on us, dude. I encourage. What's your murder plan? I do not have one. I am incapable of achieving victory in any standard combat scenario. Right, of course. I rub my temple in exasperation. Okay, who's next then? Jalisa? Any ideas? You want me to give you advice on how to kill a High Templar? Jalisa asks me incredulously. I mean, if you wouldn't mind. I mind. I scowl at her. Fine, be that way. Okay then, I guess we are starting operation, hope really hard that they just don't notice us and fly past, I say. Do you think you can all handle that one? And somehow, this actually works. It's not long until Brahm and Cassia reach the point where we veered off the road, and they definitely notice something is amiss. Yet they keep flying anyway, ignoring us and continuing towards Site 4. Huh? I mutter to myself. I actually got lucky for once. I suspect they seek the artist, Ultrix informs me placidly. You may be dangerous and hated, but you are but the epilogue in the book of horror he wrote. From what he told me, he more or less made me by accident, I grumble. But I don't remember. I don't remember him, I don't remember you, I don't remember anything. 2/3 of Ultrix's soul twitch in pain as I say that, so I nod apologetically at her. Sorry. I can tell you care about me, but the best I can do is let you stay with me and make new memories. Smashed mine, I guess. But honestly, your feelings on the matter are the biggest evidence to me that you and ours aren't lying. Capita believes it, you believe it, he believes it. I guess I have to face the facts and accept I'm some kind of weird baby mistwatcher thing. I sigh, raising my arm so I can stare at my flesh tentacle as I idly flick and curl it without really thinking. It's just annoying, I continue, because I really don't like the mistwatcher. The idea that I'll eventually mutate into some big tentacle flesh blob is not very appealing. I thought you liked your tentacles, Lynn says, in the same way a mother might be surprised that their child doesn't like their haircut. This is not a tentacle, I complain, pointing at the thing growing out of my elbow. It's a gross, superficially tentacle-shaped mockery of flesh. It doesn't move right, it doesn't feel right. It's awful. I've always been taught that tentacles are symbols of the divine, Jalisa says solemnly. I snort. Then why aren't you kneeling? I quip, wiggling a physical and spiritual tentacle in front of her face. Because false use of a divine symbol is blasphemy, Jalisa smirks. Hey, it's not my fault, I grumble. Apparently I was made this way by a former High Inquisitor. Templars have been the ones fucking me from the start. Her face falls, and I decide I'm done talking for now. It's still a long way to our destination, and I should collect as many undead as possible so that none of the living get hurt. The rest of the trip is almost entirely uneventful. Over the next couple of days we trudge through dense forest, following Netta and Mateo's directions as I slowly gather an army of a few hundred dregs unrisen. I just lose myself in the collection process, trying to ignore the unwelcome temptation to let my consciousness leave my body and slip within my soul. For obvious reasons I can't do that, and that knowledge makes some horrible part of me long to still be in a prison cell. It's like I'm addicted to not being myself. Eventually, Netta and Mateo declare that we are close enough and request that I make a temporary camp for everyone before they lead me to the place where they meet Penelope. I guess they have been instructed to keep it secret from everyone else, which is perfectly understandable. With Ultrix, Manus, and a literal army of undead there to keep the peace, I'm not super worried about leaving everyone else alone. They take Lynn and I to a small clearing a few hours away, and then just sit down. So, how does this work? I ask. We wait, Netta grunts. For how long? Sometimes days, Mateo hisses. Your girlfriend I's not well known for being predictable. Then what? I press. She just appears. Yep, Netta confirms. Oh. I was kidding, but alright. I sit down as well, waiting for who knows how long to see one of the few people I love for the first time in years. It's very boring. Wanna prank her? Lynn asks. It's 3 hours later when I suddenly feel a powerful mana signature in the center of the clearing. I hunch down deeper into the bushes, hiding in wait of my prey. Then, suddenly, she's here, and it takes every ounce of my self-control to remain still. She's here. That soul of beautiful pink bubbles, pulsing and alive, hidden partly under an artificial shell. Her soul is bigger since last I saw it, but the shell is smaller and she's ever more beautiful because of it. Penelope has always had a sense for combining practicality and style, but her clothes now lean more towards the former. Heavy, padded clothing armors her body, teasing at her curves with its tight fit. Her hair is braided all the way down past her waist, elegantly woven in a pattern I could never even imagine learning. Her soul stirs as she looks around, and I feel mana rapidly shaping itself inside her despite her motionless hands. Lynn steps out in front of her, and Penelope's focus snaps on the woman immediately. "Lynn," Penelope says curtly, her soul singing stress and impatience. "What happened?" "Sorry, Lady Vesuvius," my mother mutters. "We got really damn close, but we couldn't break her out. They've still got her." An aching fury flows through Penelope and is swiftly murdered, replaced by cold calculation. I feel her take in the world around her, analyze information, and start forming a plan, all while efficiently coming to a swift conclusion about the current conversation. "You're lying," Penelope says, blunt irritation pouring out of her voice. There's a pause, and then her eyes widen as she catches up to her own thoughts. "You're lying," she repeats excitedly. And that is the moment I burst out of the bushes and scoop her up into a hug. Her eyes lock onto mine immediately. Holy shit, they are golden now, and she squeals with delight as I spin her around, laughing with the sheer jubilance of finally being able to see her again. I'm free. I'm free. Even with the whole world against me, she found me and set me free. "Vita," Penelope breathes, cupping her hands around my cheeks as if I might spill through them like water. "Penelope," I respond, reaching out with a tentacle, a real tentacle, and feeling an overwhelming surge of joy and relief when it makes contact. Next thing I know, I've wrapped us both up entirely, hundreds of tendrils exploding out of my core and squeezing us together in a cocoon. I made it. I actually made it. I made it home. Chapter 123. For a beautiful moment, it's just the two of us, squeezing each other with all our might because, despite all our fears, we actually can. We are here, together again. I'm curled all around her, tentacles twisting around every inch of her body as I hold her close, Roscoe nestled between my physical form and hers. Something stirs inside her and her soul pulls for mana, but the Watcher cannot reach her here. Surrounded by my soul, she is cut off. I offer her myself instead, releasing my own mana around her, and the grand recesses of her being gladly pull me in. Greedy for power as she is, she sucks up more and more of me, but I hardly mind. Dancing around the inside of her spirit, I press myself lovingly along the impossibly complex pathways within. A nuzzle here, a slight squeeze there. I get to cuddle her from inside and out. There's love for me in here, and I get to bask in it directly, warming me from all sides. Penelope immediately quirks a confused eyebrow, startled by new and confusing sensations. "Is this you?" she whispers. "MMHRM, I confirm, my face nuzzled too far into her shoulder to articulate further. "It's so different," she murmurs. "So very different. Pleasant, not dangerous. Easier. Channeling isn't like this. Watcher mana doesn't like to be channeled," I mutter, slightly annoyed to be talking about it rather than just basking in it. "I like it. As long as it's you." "It's odd," Penelope remarks. "But good. Like being hugged from the inside." "I am hugging from the inside," I mumble. "Snuggling up. You're my soul blankie." She chuckles, running her hand over my barely fuzzy scalp. "I bet I could hold a lot more of your mana in me than Watcher mana, if you aren't fighting me. More maximum power." I sigh, giving up on the hope for more silent cuddles. "That sounds nice. Just don't cause a mana annihilation inside your soul. That'd be bad, probably." "Ah, yes, I suppose it's a downside," she agrees, tracing a finger around the eye on my temple. "When did you grow this?" "Dunno," I grumble. I kind of lost track of time. "A few months ago, I think. There's one on my thigh, too. And my arm tentacle. Ugh. Can you get rid of it all?" "Certainly," she agrees. "Though if that means you aren't growing these things on purpose, well, that's concerning. We should focus effort into looking into why that's happening first." I grunt in agreement. "I guess that sounds like a good idea." "What about your eyes?" I ask, changing the subject. "I can't imagine they're anything but intentional." "Do you like them?" Penelope preens. Yellow is probably my least favorite color," I answer honestly. Oops, disappointment fills her immediately. But, Why no, it's never been important to me how you look, I quickly remind her, scooping her up into a tentacular Princess Carrie. And your soul has gotten much prettier since I last saw you. The mask is starting to come off. If, that's why the eyes are like they are, please keep them. Penelope's eyebrows raise, a smile returning to her lips. Watcher's eyes, Vida, was that a social skill you just used? She taunts. Prison really has changed you. I wince. Well, I guess so, I admit. I didn't have much to do other than watch people and massage my ocean. It's really good to be back. Penelope leans into me, smirking slightly. It's so surreal, being here with her. She's different, but not as much as I'd feared. I hate that the vast majority of the time she's been my girlfriend, I haven't even been able to talk to her. Yet still. Go ahead and brag, I tell her. I know you want to. Oh, well, she hums. If you insist. She languidly extracts herself from my arms, taking a dramatic pause for effect as a grin splits her face, revealing an impressive pair of fangs. I fucking did it, she hisses gleefully. I stole you from the highest security prison on the goddamn island, and they won't have the slightest shred of evidence I was involved. This could not have gone more perfectly. Lynn awkwardly clears her throat. Sorry, Lady Vesuvius, you two are like super incredibly cute and all, but I gotta protest that one thing kind of went very wrong. Penelope sighs, extremely put out by having her monologue interrupted, but she waves Lynn to continue. Go on then, what's the bad news, she grumbles. Well, Vida kinda sorta maybe let ours out of jail, too, Lynn continues quickly. She what? Penelope shrieks. Oh yeah, that guy, I nod agreeably. He's apparently kind of my dad, or something. He's what? Anna Splice was my mom, I guess? Why no, before I was an orphan and eventually got a better mom. Oh, Lynn coos. Where is ours now? Penelope demands. No idea, I shrug. He killed himself and flew away. Shit, she hisses. Would you be able to recognize him if you see him again? Oh, totally, I nod. Dude's soul is real freaky. Very distinctive, he's like a patchwork quilt sewn entirely out of fucked up. I also destroyed the little thingy he put in my soul that made me unable to remember him. Of course. Well. Good, I suppose, Penelope grumbles. And how long is your sensory range now? No idea, I answer. Miles, at least. I think it improved even more after I started eating metal. Watcher's eyes, I forgot what it was like being around you, Penelope laments, pinching the bridge of her nose. Well, I'll need you to vet everyone important, then. And? I suppose I'll just need to take it on good faith that you aren't compromised. Skyhope is probably fine, I say. If I were ours, the absolute last place I'd want to go is anywhere near the Inquisition. He was captured for 15 years. I'd want dozens of countermeasures before getting close to anywhere with Templars again. And yet, you're here, Penelope points out sardonically. Well, yeah, I say. You and my family are here. She chuckles, shaking her head. I missed you so damn much, Vida, she says. Now give me a moment, I'll need a while to cast this teleportation spell to get us back. Then we'll take our leave, I think, Nettle says. Unless you need anything, Vida? No, I'm good, I confirm, grinning and working over to give both Hunter Revenants a hug. Thanks so much for getting me out of there, you two. It was truly our pleasure, Mateo hisses, curling around me and giving me a light squeeze back. Is it cool if I split to go check in on the family? Give him the good news. Lynn asks. Of course, Penelope nods. Just do not be seen. Yes ma'am, Lynn answers with a mock salute, then dashes away towards Skyhope. I mutter. I figured Lynn would never even think about traveling the forest alone. I've given your mother extensive modifications, Penelope answers, shrugging. She's effectively immune to poison and disease, has a bone structure strong enough to stop nearly any attack, and can regenerate a limb in under a 10 day if she eats enough. Add that to being naturally fast enough to escape any threat, and, well, she's rather bolder now. Huh, I say. Neat. I assume you've done all that to yourself, too. She smirks. Plus a bit more, yes. Now if you'd kindly direct me a bit more mana, I should be able to safely consume it all for this teleportation spell. Oh yeah, I nod. Sure. Tell me when to stop. About 15 minutes later, Penelope grabs my hand and I'm suddenly somewhere else. I stagger, overwhelmed by such an oppressive silence. There are 6 people here, counting myself. Then, well over what must be a mile away, I feel souls on my periphery. But in between? Hardly anything but worms and dirt. The intense quiet that's normally below me is now everywhere. Above, below, around. It's so lifeless. We're very far underground, I whisper, because for some reason it just feels right to be quiet. MMHMM, Penelope confirms happily. Welcome to my humble abode. And welcome home to you, Lady Vesuvius, a disturbingly familiar voice coos. Penelope goes white as a sheet, a sudden panic ringing in her soul as a short woman who looks exactly like me walks into the room. Well, to be more accurate, she looks exactly like I remember looking 2 years ago, with a mere 2 eyes, raven black hair down to her shoulders, and a solid 2 inches under me in height. Nice, I grew a little. Suffice to say, I am caught by surprise on this one, partly because her soul is totally different from mine but mostly because she's dressed like one of the fucking pole dancers at Sky's casino. I begin, watching Penelope go beet red beside me. What is this? A mistake, Penelope hisses. I am Nugas. The me clone responds happily. You must be Vita. It is so wonderful to finally meet you. Wow, I manage. You got me, Penelope. I have no idea whether to be disgusted, creeped out, or flattered. I would be so very pleased if you chose to be flattered, Lady Vita. Nugas beams. Did you seriously make a living fookdil of me? I ask, bewildered. I knew you had it bad, but again, wow. She's not a fookdil. Penelope snaps. I didn't fall that far. I just. In a moment of weakness, you turned someone into a sexy clone of me in a moment of weakness. Months of weakness, then, Penelope hisses, brimming with shame. I lost hope. I was angry. So I poured my research into our dedicated animancy test subject. Something poetic, desperate, and cruel. I don't think you've been cruel, Lady Vesuvius, my copy reassures her. Of course not, Penelope grumbles back. You don't think anything I didn't make you to think. For the first time, the ghost of my face frowns. Well, perhaps those words were cruel, Nugas responds. Penelope looks away, flinching like she'd been slapped. What the fuck is going on? Can we back up for a moment? I ask. Penelope, when you say our dedicated animancy test subject, do you mean? Yes, Penelope grunts. This used to be the man Sky assigned to guard your family. The one that let Angelian die. I raise my eyebrows at her, though the eye on my temple twists to glare at Nugas. This is him. He. Well, no, she feels completely different. Not the least because she strongly considers herself a she. The thug didn't. It's completely unrecognizable as the source soul in so many ways. I'm leaning towards being disgusted now, I admit. It was meant to be a punishment for him, Penelope mumbles miserably. I blink at her. Is that supposed to make me feel better? No, Penelope insists. I'm explaining. It was a punishment for him, and it was a good one. The way he screamed when he realized what I was doing to him, Vita. Oh, it was so much more than any physical pain I could have given him. It was beautiful. And that's the problem. I was too caught up in how fucked everything had become at the time to realize it, but in retrospect it couldn't have been more obvious that I was just indulging my absolute worst tendencies. I didn't just take the mask off, I shattered it and shat on the pieces. This is nothing but a reminder of what I am at my worst. Of what I can't ever let myself do again. so I would prefer if we just forget about her and move on. I'm sure your revenants have missed you. Penelope, if you hate this person so much, why don't you just change them back? I ask. If I may be permitted to answer that, please? Nugas asks demurely. Penelope just looks away, which I assume she interprets as permission to continue. I remember the man I was made from, Nugas tells me. I remember him sobbing as my body shrunk and softened. I remember screaming as she cut him out of me, flaying his joy and hate until they were tender enough to mold. Lady Vesuvius killed him so that I could grow from his corpse. I do not wish to die the same way. I implore you, Lady Vita, to not consider us the same. He was a foul, selfish, and evil man. He hated himself, and I hate him even more than that. I am not him. We are not the same. I regard her, surprised by the conviction in her words, the desperate need to make me understand. And I suppose I do. This isn't the man that let Angelion die. I could never have recognized her soul as such. Which just makes this entire situation even freakier, really. I expected Penelope to figure out a lot of animancy, but not this much. Okay, I acknowledge. I guess. It's nice to meet you, Nugas. She beams, and I step past her, thinking. My own revenants never freaked me out like this. Is it just because they're mine? Can't I get you anything for you and your guest, Lady Vesuvius? Nugas asks. No, Nugas, Penelope sighs, every word out of my copy's mouth sending fresh sparks of embarrassment through her. Thank you. Of course, Lady Vesuvius. Nugas bows slightly, her pure blue eyes gleaming. Penelope catches up with me, face carefully blank as she tries to master her emotions. Sorry about that, Penelope mumbles. I was so excited about your return and so busy with my work I never got around to changing her face. Oh, that's fine, I dismiss. She likes it more than I ever did. She can keep it. Penelope grunts, and I pick up a general dissatisfaction with that answer which links to her embarrassment. You didn't want me to know, did you? I press. Why would I want anyone to know? Penelope counters. She's convenient to have around, I won't deny that. But she's still a mistake. I nod slowly. At what point did you start to regret it? I ask. Penelope glowers at me, so I lean over and give her a side hug. She sighs. When I made her love me, she answers quietly. That moment when I took her head and made it want nothing more than what was best for me. She didn't dread my work anymore. She looked forward to it. And that changed everything. I lost interest immediately. That's what made me realize every justification I'd given myself, every logical reason to do what I've done. It was all bullshit. I was only really in it for the torture. I had created an entire fucking person for no reason beyond raw sadism. I'm worse than my own parents. I squeeze her shoulder. Well, I'm really glad your parents made you, I reassure her. So maybe someone will be happy you made Nugas someday. Penelope smirks. But not you, and not today? Oh, fuck no, I confirm. She's freaky as shit. Penelope cackles, finally shrugging off most of her foul mood. I've missed your bluntness, she sighs. But yes, that's Nugas. I'm sorry that the first person you meet at my place had to be her rather than your daughter. That's okay. It's been 2 years, I can wait 5 minutes to let you air your dirty laundry. Penelope flinches. She is a person, Vita, she says softly. Try not to forget that, and try not to let me forget again either. I'm trying to learn to embrace who I am, but, well, there's accepting my flaws and then there's Nugas. Really, Penelope, it's fine, I reassure her. She's freaky but I do that kind of thing all the time. I'm not going to be a hypocrite about it. Excuse me, did I hear something about dirty laundry? Nugas asks, poking her head into the hallway. Is there something I should clean? You do look rather ripe, Lady Vita. No, Nugas, I was calling you Penelope's dirty laundry, I clarify. Oh, Nugas purrs, running a hand lightly over the top of one of her breasts. Well, I suppose I wouldn't mind. Watcher's eyes, stop that. Penelope snaps, blushing furiously. Nugas just cackles and re-enters the room she popped out of. She's just going to be even more incorrigible now that you're here, isn't she? Penelope groans. It's so weird seeing myself nearly naked all the time, I agree. You did great work on her eyes, though. Thanks, I suppose, Penelope grunts. We continue on, wordlessly agreeing to keep silent in order to both drop the subject and to surprise the first revenant we see. Vitamin, Margaret, and Theodora are all here, but this place is way too fucking big for the 5 people it apparently normally houses. It feels like needless opulence, but I guess that's the kind of house Penelope is used to. It's not like Penelope is showing it off to anyone, this deep underground. So maybe it's just what her context for a home is. Eventually, we walk all the way to the room where I sense Vitamin. She's sitting down, facing away from the door in a meditative stance. Energy flows through the strands of anima running within her tiny child body, pulsing and concentrating and dancing about with clear intent. It's fascinating to watch. What's it for, I wonder? Normally, the amount of power in each soul strand is pretty much equal, but Vitamin is removing energy from some parts of her body to empower others, then moving it back, then moving it somewhere else. She's training to optimize her strength wherever it happens to be needed, probably. Either way, I break her focus quite thoroughly when I lean down and give her a big hug from behind. Guess who? I ask. Hey Nugas, she answers, turning her head towards me. What's Her sentence transitions directly into excited screaming, quickly twisting all the way around so she can squeeze me back. I lift her up into the air, grinning as she squeals. Mom. Mom, is it really you? You're back? You're back? Margaret. It's really me. I confirm, rustling her hair. Has Penelope been treating you well? Oh yeah, I mean, totally. Vitamin confirms. Best future mom ever. It sucks that we're pretty much trapped underground again, but I'm glad there's enough space to run around and practice martial arts and stuff. Keeps things from getting too boring. Plus, she feeds us. Margaret, come here. What? Margaret shouts from somewhere above us. Her voice is very different from what I remember. I don't want to go down the stairs right now, Vitamin. You come up here. This is worth it. Vitamin shouts back. Come here. An exasperated groan echoes down from the floor above, and soon after follows an ominous, resounding clack click clack, clack click clack as she descends down the stairs. Hum. Margaret hums tonelessly. Don't fall. Whoa. I did it. I sit down and move Vitamin to my lap as the continued cracks of something sharp and dangerous ringing against stone get ever closer. Soon after, a monster of nightmares stalks around the corner and fills the room with its presence. A mortifying construct made entirely of pitch-black bone, a Vrothizo skull stares at me with 4 hollow eyes and a statuesque grin. Attached to it is a vaguely humanoid torso, with bony arms and a structure that seems to be a ribcage until it starts to twist and undulate like rows of black ivory tentacles. In place of human legs, 6 blade-tipped limbs grow from the thick, curved spine, clattering along the ground as it walks. A whip-like tail of anima-joined bone fragments finishes the aesthetic, tipped with a wicked 2-edged blade. Though this creature could very easily be the skeleton of a Vrothizo as is, evidence exists of custom design and alterations. Some bones are carved into shapes or broken into pieces that clearly weren't part of whatever unfortunate creature died to make this body. When Margaret the undead monstrosity speaks, her ribcage twists threads of mana to form the kinemacy she requires. A skeleton has no lungs, after all. Hey, Nugas, she greets. That's a bold fucking haircut. Odd outfit, too. Where'd you get? Margaret stops. I grin at her, lifting Vitamin onto my shoulders as I stand up. Wow, I say appreciatively. You went and made yourself gorgeous while I was gone, huh Margaret? Vita. She squeaks back, rushing in for a hug. She's close to 2 feet taller than me, so I end up getting a face full of rib cage. It wraps lovingly around my head and squeezes, which is extra cute. Oh, watch his eyes, you made it. She blubbers. You're okay. You're okay, you're okay. I'm okay, I confirm. Now you've got to tell me the story of how you became a cool skeleton monster. Oh, it's your favorite kind of story, Penelope agrees. Full of blasphemy? I prompt. She smirks. Absolutely brimming. Chapter 124. Well, basically, Margaret explains, while Penelope was really into that conomancy stuff and Theodora enjoys helping her research biomancy, I figured I'd do what you do and learn a bunch of necromancy. The first question I asked related back to our research about what constitutes a corpse. I wanted to find the lower limit of what the Mist Watcher wouldn't grab a soul out of. And let me guess, I cut in. Skeletons. Skeletons. Margaret chirps happily, her massive, bladed legs tapping happily on the floor. Or specifically, skeleton. Singular. Every single bone in a contiguous body is to be from the same source creature, with like maybe a bit of wiggle room here and there, or old Misty seems to take offense. But, they don't have to be the same configuration, or even the same shape as they had in life. Huh, I acknowledge as Margaret happily lifts me up onto her back. Well, onto the horizontal part of her spine, really, since she is just bones. It's not the most comfortable sitting position, but it's not that bad either. Being a weird scorpion person skeleton makes Margaret very big, and there's plenty to grab onto. With vitamins still on my shoulders, we form quite the power team. The real trick was figuring out how to get skeletons to work at all, Margaret continues. Because no, without muscles and tendons and stuff, bones aren't actually connected to each other. And souls need a contiguous form to inhabit. It took a bit of tweaking, but I ended up isolating and modifying the information contained in your chart to mesh better with exclusively skeletal systems. My body will break apart if any bones get more than about a quarter-inch away from their connected partners, but I've beefed my threads up with enough tensile strength that smashing the bones themselves is more likely to be an issue. Sounds like you made some great progress, then, I acknowledge. The results speak for themselves, really. Yeah. Margaret beams, prehensile ribs wiggling with satisfaction. It's just really hard to go downstairs because I'm so front-heavy, ha ha. The tail helps a lot. But anyway, necromancy is super interesting. It's honestly less about dead soul manipulation and more about manipulating anima for specific functions. Like the way your shards act as a form of artificial anima brain to replace our physical one. Wait, my shards do that? Yep. Margaret confirms. Among a bunch of other things. I suspect naturally occurring revenants are the result of some kind of soul mutation that gives people an inherent anima brain. But I'm not sure. All I know is that the vast majority of souls won't form natural revenants, only dregs after being smashed. If you ever stumble on a natural revenant, try to capture it for me, would you? Sure, I guess, I acknowledge. Oh, that reminds me, though. Penelope. I've gotta show you the animavorous ozoid that was stuck with the prisoners. She's cute, and more importantly she's formerly dead. The slime tried to eat her and failed to digest, so now she's the slime. Oh. Penelope hums. Well, that's certainly interesting. You should take me back to see her when we finish saying hello to everyone. I nod. Speaking of, mind taking us to Theodora, Margaret? I ask. Oh, not at all. Away we go. Skittering along the ground, we race upstairs, passing by rooms far too quickly for me to see what's inside. Not that I really care. I'm just here for the people. Theodora. Margaret calls out. Theodora, come here, come here. What? Theodora snaps back, her voice ringing out from behind a closed door. I'm busy. You're gonna want to come see this. Margaret insists, stopping outside the room. A resounding groan rings from within, and a frighteningly desiccated Theodora emerges from within, looking incredibly exhausted for a woman who's literally incapable of sleep. Her dry skin is stretched tightly over her bones, the muscles and fat between having shriveled away to near nothing. What is it, Margaret? She grumbles. Hello, vitamin. Hello, new. She blinks at me, and the contradictory shitstorm I expected from her emotions never comes. Instead, it's all united, surprise, joy, relief. Her chart no longer wars with her. She's become fully mine in my absence. I grin, despite the nagging worry that this means I'll break my promise to free her. Hey, Theodora, I greet her. Long time no see. She grins back, and it's equally glorious and painful to see. Vita. She breathes. Vita, you made it. Welcome, welcome. She actually extends her arms up for a hug, so I hop down and give it to her. She shudders, actually shudders with relief as she squeezes me for a few seconds before finally letting go. It feels like she is confirming something she has been afraid was false for ages. You okay, Theodora? I ask hesitantly. Do I feel okay? She asks me back. I frown a little. I mean, yeah, I admit. You seem to be doing well. Just not in the way I expected. She shrugs. It wasn't worth fighting you anymore, Vita, she says. It was too much work to make myself miserable for so little gain. So, I'm glad you were back, and I'm glad to be glad. I glance at Penelope, who sighs and shakes her head. Anamancy, she acknowledges blandly. You and I are up shit creek without a boat. Yeah, I guess so, I agree quietly. Well, good to see you, Theodora. What have you been up to these past 2 years? I've mostly been sitting in a small padded room. Theodora steps back towards the room, waving me in excitedly. I'll show you. The room is oddly humid and warm, and I quickly realize that's because it's full of shelves upon shelves of pulsating, slightly fuzzy lumps of flesh. The lumps have tiny, beady eyes, hairless tails, and twitching mouths, and such underdeveloped limbs that they can't possibly move. What is all this? I ask. Immortality research, of course, Theodora says. These were once rats, but I extensively modified them with Penelope's guidance to my specifications. I'm confident in claiming Theodora is the second best biomancer on Vaca, now, Penelope confirms. She's a quick learner. Basically, I'm answering the question of why does the Watcher put a soul in a body when it does? And by extension, how can we trick it into not ensouling a body until after it is developed? If we answer these two questions, we can start making backup bodies for people, and the biomancy half of our immortality method would be solved. So? I prompt. How close are you? She crosses her arms, smirking triumphantly. Yeah, she probably picked that habit up from Penelope. It's done, Theodora declares. Check the soul count in the room. I don't bother to glance around, since I'm already well aware. Literally all of the bodies in the room have the soul in them, I announce blandly, not quite sure what she's getting at. Theodora shoots a smug look at Penelope. Told you. It works. Look deeper, Vita, Penelope insists, not to be outdone by whatever contest this is. So I do, glowering at the souls in the room. Are they fake, or something? The idea of fake souls pisses me off, but I reach out and poke one to confirm it and they certainly feel real. So then what is? Wait a moment. The souls are bigger than they should be for rats, much bigger. And there's something inside each soul. Something physical. The trick isn't the number of souls, I realize. It's the number of bodies. All of these rat things are pregnant. But it's difficult to tell without looking for it because the rat soul encompasses the kid's body. Exactly. Theodora agrees, clapping happily. There are two things I've determined. 1. The Watcher doesn't notice that there's a soul-ready body until some time after it develops a complex enough brain for consciousness. Sentience is the first requirement for a soul vessel. Not in the sense that the vessel has to be intelligent, but just that it has to feel and experience things. I'm not yet sure how the Mist Watcher detects sentience. Penelope suspects it's some kind of biomancy. I have my doubts, but in any case it does. Then, a pseudo-random amount of time after a baby is developed enough for at least minimally simplistic thought, the Watcher notices and gifts it a soul. but only, of course, if the watcher thinks it doesn't currently have one. So with a large enough body, a specifically positioned womb, and a large enough soul, you can put up a screen that makes it harder to see the one body inside the other, I conclude. Nice. It's very useful information, Penelope agrees, but it's not actionable. Humans are substantially larger than rats. There's no way we can make some kind of living human incubate a creature with our current resources and knowledge. And the necessary soul size would be prohibitively large for an adult body. Bringing people back to life by dropping them out of giant birthing sacks would also be terrifying and gross, Theodora agrees. Not impossible, but, you know, it might cause a bit of a bad public image for our immortality venture. Still, though. Progress. Progress, I agree. I'm mostly just happy to see you again. I'm glad you seem to be doing well, circumstances considered. And we're glad you're back, Mom. Vitamin chimes in. Unfortunately, we will need to cut this reunion fairly short, Penelope says. Apparently ours is alive and got released along with Vita, so I really need her to check and make sure he's not somewhere in the city. Oh, holy shit, Theodora swears. Really? Ours is alive? That's terrifying. He's not gonna come after us, is he? Margaret asks. Nah, I dismiss. I think he kind of likes me. I'm his weird estranged experimental daughter, or something. I have no idea if that's better or worse, Theodora admits. It's not important right now, Penelope dismisses. What's important is somehow getting Vita into the city without everyone with a danger sense recognizing her immediately. Do we have any ideas? I've got nothing, Margaret admits. Haven't done any research on how danger senses work. If you know nothing, I'm certainly not going to, Theodora grunts. I'm small and I can punch things. Vitamin adds helpfully. Then we have a problem, Penelope grumbles. I can't in good conscience not take Vita to Skyhope, but I certainly can't be seen with someone that matches even part of an escaped convict's description either. Well, why not just have both of you go in disguise? Vitamin asks. Penelope blinks. Ah. Right, that would make sense. Thank you, Vitamin. I suppose. We'll go ask Nugas for some appropriate outfits. One visit to my doppelganger later, who was just absolutely tickled to be able to help. Penelope and I are dressed in ominous black overcoats and slightly see-through blindfolds. The outfit is strapped with a ton of not-so-hidden knives. Basically, we look like some horrifying mixture between cultist and assassin, which is kinda ominous and obvious as fuck. Look at how lovely you two are when you match. Nugas chirps happily. Oh, you're regular queens of death. Don't these disguises seem rather, I don't know, distinctive and obvious? I ask. I thought we were trying to avoid attention. I thought so too at first, Nugas agrees, tilting her head. But then I realized you don't want or need a disguise to hide from common citizens. You're looking to fool people that have danger senses and recognize the distinctive terror of the blue girl. We want to give them something new to latch onto, not a mystery to try and puzzle out. That's quite astute, Nugas, Penelope agrees. These outfits might not strike a perfect balance there, and having new rumors running around at all is somewhat of a problem, but it's unavoidable in this case. This should do fine. Unless Penelope is to draw a knife on someone, I joke. You still don't have any idea how to fight, do you? She chuckles. Well, not really. I'll certainly look like an amateur with a knife. But I'm prepared for an undercover altercation. Well, hopefully it won't come to that, Nugas says. You both look delightfully intimidating, after all. And Penelope can just spoof a different talent by casting with her internal tentacles. Wait, her what? One explanation about custom internal organs later. Penelope is so fucking cool. We teleport to an old warehouse that Penelope functionally but not legally owns. Once again, I'm slightly stunned by the sudden appearance of tens of thousands of souls in my sensory range all at once, but I rally as quickly as I can and scan for any particularly weird ones. Nothing really noteworthy, I report. Can you feel the outer walls from here? Penelope asks. Yep, there are a handful of people walking up at a height that can't be anything but the walls. Yeah. It's about, I don't know, a quarter of my total sensory range in that direction. I feel the tip of the forest too. Holy shit, Penelope breathes. That's nearly 5 miles from here. Well, cool. I grin. Then we've just gotta walk. What, like 3 or 4 miles in the opposite direction for me to feel the other side of the city? I think we might have to do a small loop, but yes, Penelope agrees. This shouldn't take much time at all. Let's go, then. Stick to avoiding everyone we can. You got it. I confirm. Geez, it's like scouting for the hunters again. We remove ourselves from the warehouse, and I quickly start navigating us through the streets of Skyhope. It's weird now. There's a ton of wood everywhere, of all things, and nearly every major street has been completely rebuilt after the sewers collapsed. Not to mention, whenever we cross a road that's long and straight enough, we can stare all the way down into the center of Skyhope Crater and see the massive, gaping hole that was once the center city. It hardly feels familiar at all. Still, it's not too difficult a task to steer us along, walking in a wide circle as I keep the outer walls at the periphery of my senses. It doesn't take more than 20 minutes to find my first notable soul. Okay, well it's not ours, but Golda's definitely around, I say. We're gonna want to stay the fuck away from her. Well, you are, Penelope corrects. I work with her every few days. You do? She snorts. Vida, did no one mention that I'm a first lady now? We're both councilwomen. No shit? I ask, raising my eyebrows. Wow, congratulations. That was a major goal for you, right? How'd you pull it off? Oh, nothing fancy, she dismisses in that way, which means it's very fancy. I just single-handedly won the second Vacancy Gold Award by slaughtering 12,000 men with a plague cocktail. I let out an appreciative whistle. Wow, I acknowledge. That sounds like a fun time. Just hearing about it makes me hungry. She laughs, and I suddenly pick up on another interesting soul in range. Oh hey, Lark is here too, I say. Did I ever mention I spared that little Vrothizo? You did not, Penelope accuses. But I figured that out when I became her officially assigned by Mancer. She's a Templar trainee now. I do a double take. I'm sorry, what? I ask. Seriously? Seriously, Penelope nods. It's hilarious. The Templars are training a soul-eating monster from Iveric, I repeat, dumbfounded. And I get imprisoned? That's such fucking bullshit. It seems she ended up rather devout, Penelope shrugs. And she's happy to do whatever she's told, more or less. I imagine that's why they like her. I snort. It sounds like you like her, I say. Oh, I absolutely do, Penelope agrees. Don't worry, I'm working to slowly turn her against them. But even without that, it's wonderful having a live Vrothizo to experiment on. They are absolutely incredible creatures. Well, I'm glad it's working out for you, I guess, I grunt. That ungrateful little shit better not come after me, though. Bah, she's a sweetheart, Penelope dismisses. You may as well be afraid of getting attacked by Bentley. We laugh at that, and since we're alone I lean in to give her another hug as well. From there, our trip around Skyhope is mostly uneventful. We chat about a few other familiar souls, but as I expected, ours isn't here. One last important stop for the day, then, Penelope says as we return to the warehouse. We've got to go visit your family. Fuck yeah. I agree. But I assume we're not just going to walk in the front door looking like this? Certainly not, Penelope chides. We're going to teleport into their secret basement looking like this. So we do. 15 minutes of casting and one disorienting change of location later, we appear in a cellar, a collection of beautifully familiar souls above us. It's pitch black in here, but I waste no time casting a simple light spell, locating the hatch, and tossing it open. Guess WHO, motherfuckers. I shout, scaring the shit out of everyone in the house. It's immensely satisfying. What I don't expect is a wooden sword to suddenly swing towards my head, but I duck it without trouble, grinning wildly. Shit, is that Norman? Norman just took a swing at me. Wow, he got so fucking tall. Ronnie. Basra. Katie. Norman. Raphael. Jari. Doodle. Larkin. Sylvie. They're here. That's everyone except for Sonia and Yarod, though I think I sense them a ways down the street, walking this way with Rowan. It's hard to tell, because holy dang so many of them grew so much. In like, height and stuff, sure, but also in soul. Some of them have usable talents. To that end, something stirs inside Norman, and with an explosive jerk his swing swaps direction, rushing back towards my head when he should still be caught well within the backswing. Neat. I catch the dull practice blade with one hand anyway, gleefully drinking in the look of raw terror on his face. Why is he so freaked out? He has a danger sense now. That's not a guess, I chide playfully. Basra. Norman calls. Basra, help. My dull-eyed little sister pokes her head into the room, a nonplussed look on her face. Bro, she grunts. There's only one person we know who's that freaky and that short. I stiffen, dropping the blade as I whirl on Basra. Hey. I protest. I'm not that short. I grew 2 whole inches, I think. So now I'm. Penelope, how tall am I? 5 foot even, she calls up. 5 foot even. I declare proudly. Basra snorts, walks right up to me, and then has the fucking audacity to put her elbow on my head and lean on me. 5 foot even, she grunts. That's cool. What? I protest. How? How did you get this tall? You're like 13. I'm 14, and I got tall because of the inherent unfairness of life, Basra answers. Deal with it. Also like, welcome home and stuff. Vita? Norman realizes, finally catching up with the conversation. You nearly gave me a heart attack. Vita. A half-dozen other kids parrot, and soon I'm swarmed with hugs. Ah, look at you all. You all got so big and strong. I coo. Have you been okay? What all happened while I was gone? And so I start getting their stories, hearing how Capita teleported them to safety during the perception event, how Basra and Norman are training to be hunters, which I'm not sure how I feel about, to be honest, and how they and all the younger kids have been going to school. School. Like that thing for rich people. They have tutors. Rowan soon walks inside with the other 2 kids and the second round of hugs begins. Apparently part of the reason we can afford tutors for the kids is because he works as one. He teaches kinemancy to rich people now, and also gets contracts from the army and the Templars to help train people against illusory threats. That's all cool. I squeal, squeezing him hard enough for him to start making strained noises. Rowan, this place is so nice. I figured Penelope was just bankrolling you. Well, I kind of am, since your mother works for me, Penelope comments, looking up from a currently shirtless Ronnie that she happens to be working on. But she certainly earns it. Where's she, anyway? I ask. Probably catching up on the dozens of things she was ostensibly busy doing while she was actually out saving you, Rowan answers, rustling my hair. She dropped by to give everyone a heads up you'd be back and ran off. Though Norman just conveniently forgot about that and decided to try to brain you with a stick, Basra drawls. Hey! Norman yelps. I didn't expect it, okay? It's fine, I got to see your cool sword move, I dismiss, waving him off. It's not like it would have hurt. Oh. Basra deadpans. I think that sounds like a challenge, Norman. I think it does, he agrees. Please don't beat up your big sister, she's experimentally relevant, Penelope calls. Also, I love her. Is she really my big sister? Basra asks. Anyway Vita, what have you been up to? Rowan asks. You've got to give us your side of the story. So. I tell them. I talk about heading out to help people in the perception event, getting cornered by Brahm the Ubiquitous and fighting him off, getting captured and waking up in restraints. I tell them about jail, about my decision to bide my time, about the beatings I endured and the hypocrisy of our nation's so-called protectors. I told the story of freeing ours, of killing the High Templar, of liberating the prison and of escaping Brahmin Kashia again. But right when I'm about to talk about meeting up with Penelope again, she stops me, mind whirling. Wait. You never told me about this entourage of followers you left in the forest. I thought it was just you, Lynn, and the revenants. Oh, nope, I clarify. Like I said, Jalisa was the only good one, so it felt wrong not to keep her alive. And then she convinced me to keep 3 other Templars we found alive as well. She gives me that you fucked up in some political way you'll never understand look. And you just left them? Penelope presses urgently. They're still in the forest, alongside a Templar-aligned serving staff, unsupervised? Well, not unsupervised, no, I protest. I have a handful of revenants, some of them crazy strong, not to mention Ultrix. And, no, like hundreds of dregs. Besides, the 3 extra Templars are collared, the serving staff are all talentless, and Jalisa's only real talent is getting along with people. They're not going anywhere. Penelope pinches the bridge of her nose. Vida, we need to go back, she insists. Now. What? I blink in surprise. Why? Because you took a ragtag, disparate collection of shaky alliances bound only by fear of you, and left them alone with the only person all of them like. You handed that woman a coup on a silver platter. Oh. You wouldn't mind teleporting us again, would you? I ask. Penelope sighs. I'm already casting it. Tope continued. Thanks for listening.